Hi, this is Joel Persinger. Thank you very much for watching my videos on my channel. I really deeply appreciate it. I've got a California update for you and also a quick legislative update in the nation from a federal level. But before I do that, I want to urge you to check us out on Patreon, as Jim P. did. Jim, wherever you are, brother, thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for helping us out. Patreon is a place where we put some great content for you. We've got additional videos there that you won't see on YouTube. Obviously, we're continuing to produce videos on YouTube, just like always, but we've also got some additional ones for behind-the-scenes stuff and a little expansion on some other videos and that kind of thing on Patreon, as well as the 30-minute audio podcast we release on the 5th and the 20th of each month. And that is also on Patreon. The latest episode was released on the 5th, just, yesterday or the day before. And so you can check it out there. There's also behind-the-scenes photos, some posts that I write specifically for Patreon. All of that can be checked out there. I urge you to do so. That's what Jim did, and he is now helping us out on Patreon. You can do it for next to nothing, but at the same time, you get some great stuff. So check out Patreon. The link is in the description, and there's a little pop-up right here that'll pop up and ask you to do that as well. All right, now let's get on to this stuff. I took some notes, as you can see in my chicken scratch scribble here. So let me get my glasses and see what we got. Because if you watch the news, frankly, it can be really discouraging because the wacky fake news, as President Trump calls them, is just doing everything they can to oppose anything and everything pro-American and anything and everything constitutional and anything and everything President Trump. In fact, my son has said just the other day that, in his opinion, it reminds him a lot of middle school and grade school drama, and I feel the same way. It's pretty ridiculous. So you can get kind of discouraged by it. I wanted to encourage you that President Trump made specific promises in a whole range of areas to us, but he also made some promises where the Second Amendment is concerned. And I want to encourage you that he's keeping them, and I'm very grateful. Now, he's got a tough row to hoe. It ain't going to be easy. But he's doing a great job so far. He's only been in office, 45 days or something like that. So far, the Supreme Court, as you know, is missing a justice since Justice Scalia passed away, unfortunately. And that left the Supreme Court with sort of a 4-4 tie on most things. That fifth vote is what we need in order to protect our Second Amendment and to recover some of the rights that we've lost. And as a result, President Trump has submitted Neil Gorsuch's name to the Supreme Court. Now he needs to be confirmed by the Senate. Well, it's a pretty difficult process, to be honest. And although we do have a conservative, if you want to call them that, the Republicans at least have a majority in the Senate, it's a very slim majority, and 60 votes are needed, as far as I know, to get Neil Gorsuch on the bench on the Supreme Court. Now, at the moment, we've, I think, got 52 votes in his favor. The problem with it is we need 8 more. Now, if you happen to live in a state that you've got some left-leaning or Democratic senators, but in your state, that state went for Trump, or that state is very conservative, those senators are going to face a difficult re-election here pretty soon. And they may be quite malleable when it comes to your contacting them and urging them to support this Supreme Court justice for confirmation. There are going to be some hearings for confirmation hearings, I believe, in mid to late March. And then shortly thereafter, there should be a vote on this gentleman. This is all strategy. And, I did write an article on strategy versus tactics. If you want to understand the difference, I'll put the link in the description for you to that article. It's a very good article, if I do say so myself, and it will explain the difference for you. But a lot of this stuff seems like it doesn't affect states like California or New York or Maryland or whatever, but in the long run, it does. It is extremely important that we staff the federal bench, particularly the Supreme Court, with conservative, constitutional, Second Amendment supporting justices, so that when we have legal battles, we can actually win them. Now, one of the battles in California that's heading to the Supreme Court is the Peruta case. And if you've followed it at all, it's been a seesaw of things. We've won, we've lost, we've won, we've lost. And then in the en banc panel with the Ninth Circus Court of Appeals, they all put their kangaroo suits on for the kangaroo court, and they threw it out, and we lost there. Now it's going on its way to the Supreme Court. We need to get Neil Gorsuch sitting on the Supreme Court before that case arrives if we have any chance of having our right to carry Second Amendment rights in the state of California restored. That whole case is about making the state of California a concealed carry shall issue state. Now, I'm not going to make the leap that we're going to become a constitutional state anytime soon, but the courts could certainly force the state to become shall issue, and we need Neil Gorsuch on the bench in order to do that. Now, there are other cases heading that way too that all affect the Second Amendment, and if he's there, we have an extremely good chance of passing some great laws and getting rid of some others and changing the whole legal structure of the Second Amendment restrictions in this country. So I urge you, please contact your senator as soon as possible and ask your senator to support this nomination. There's also some things that the Trump administration has done that you may not be aware of because it gets kind of blotted out by all the big news. Several things. One, there was a executive order concerning Social Security recipients and the Second Amendment. And if I understand it correctly, if they got to the point where they needed assistance in their financing or whatever, just to pay their bills, they needed somebody to balance their checkbook, pay their bills for them, or they were just getting to the point where they needed a little help, then they could not, if they accepted Social Security benefits, they could not own a firearm. Well, that to me is idiotic, and it was idiotic to the Trump administration. That has been repealed. So that is no longer the case. The Social Security gun grab is gone. Now, the Interior Secretary, who was just confirmed recently, Secretary of the Interior, first of all, he rode to work on a horse, which I thought was awesome. I've sat on horses when they were walking around, but I have no idea how to ride one. So if you do, I humble myself in the presence of greatness. I was thrilled that he did that. I thought it was neat, cowboy hat and all. The first two orders he signed, among the orders he signed, the first ones were access to public lands, opening those lands to shooting, hunting, and recreational activities. So many of those lands have been closed to sportsmen for quite a while, and Obama didn't do us any favors. He closed even more of them. Now those lands are starting to open up again, and that is because of Trump's Secretary to the Interior, who has now started signing orders to start opening up those lands, those federal lands, for you and I to use for shooting, hunting, and other recreational purposes. After all, the land belongs to you and me anyway. We ought to be able to use it if we want to. He also repealed the lead ammo ban that President Obama put into effect by an executive order right before he left office. And that banned lead ammunition and the use of it for hunting, shooting, or whatever on certain federal lands, and that has now been tossed out. He's taken away that order, so that is no longer the case. It might take a little time to implement those things, but it's important that you know that those things are happening, and the president seems to be keeping his promises, which, when you get right down to it, is how you judge a politician. They promised me some stuff. Are they actually doing it? It seems like he is, and I hope he continues. But the one thing I got to say to you about that guy is I don't know President Trump. I don't even know if I'd like him if I did know him, to be honest with you. But I voted for him, and he is the President of the United States, and the only people supporting him are you and I, the people who put him there. The media, the liberals, the billionaires like George Soros and so on, all those folks are fighting against him tooth and nail and doing whatever they can to keep him from accomplishing anything. He needs to know that we support him, so I urge you to express that support. Let's see, what else? We talked about, no, we didn't. National carry reciprocity. Okay, this is a big deal because this makes your concealed carry permit like a driver's license, and anywhere you go, if you have a permit in your home state, you can go anywhere and carry. Now, the House bill, there's a House and Senate bill, one of each. They have to be reconciled, and they have to make it through the process. The House bill says that if you are a resident of California, for example, and you can't get a permit here, but if you have a permit from Arizona, then you can carry in your home state by using that state that permit you have as an out-of-state resident from another state. That's the House bill. The Senate bill says, no, you cannot do that. You have to have a permit in your home state. Well, I'll be honest with you. I think what's going to happen is the Senate version is going to win out, and the whole idea of getting a permit in another state so you can carry in your home state is going to go away. However, that said, what happens to states like California and New Jersey and these other states that are really, really restrictive where concealed carry permits are concerned, when people from other states can go in there and carry all they want to, but the citizens of that state cannot? I think it becomes extremely difficult for that state not to issue permits. That's the first thing, politically. And secondly, I think it becomes extremely difficult for the courts not to side in favor of the Second Amendment and in favor of right to carry when a lawsuit is filed against that state, like the state of California, under the 14th Amendment, which I believe is where you find the equal protection under the law clause. How is it equal protection under the law if a Californian cannot get a permit from California, but people from 46 or 47 other states can come visit here and carry a gun all they want to. Well, it isn't. And so strategically, having that bill passed, even if you live in a state where it's not going to help you immediately, is extremely important, because once it's in place, then lawsuits and things can happen to force restrictive states to allow you to carry and issue you a permit and restore at least some level of your Second Amendment right to defend yourself in a public place. So I urge you, even if you're from California, or if you're like I am, or you're from a state where you can't get a permit to save your life, contact your senator, even if they're whacked and completely goofy like my senators here in the state of California. Contact them, pester them, bug the snot out of them, get them to support the National Right to Carry Reciprocity Act. Let them know that you want them to support that. And again, if you live in a state where your state senators might be against it, but they're facing a tough re-election because you live in a state that supported Donald Trump or supports the Second Amendment, it's important that you really contact those folks, because they're up for re-election. They very well may support the bill simply to try to keep their jobs. So I urge you to support those things as well. There's also the Hearing Protection Act that's working its way through Congress. These are tough battles, so I want you to be involved. Please, please get involved. Don't sit back on your laurels and think it's all taken care of because we won a presidential election. You got to get after it and continue to fight. The Hearing Protection Act is the one that would take the silencer, suppressor type tools off of the NFA list, would make it available for people to use them for hunting, shooting, and so on. Now, will that affect states like California immediately? Probably not, because California makes those illegal all on its own. Nevertheless, we get back to, if the majority of the country can do it, how is it equal protection under the law if one state says that you can't? Again, we're looking at strategy, not tactics. It's important that that law pass. It will help the majority of the country, and in the long run, I believe it will help the entire country. So please, again, contact your senator and urge them, and particularly your senator, because these things will pass the House. I mean, I think it would be important for you to call your congressman or congresswoman as well, but make sure that you contact your senator and politely and firmly inform them that you want them to support these particular bills. That will help a ton. Now, in California, I'm thrilled by this, even though I think it's going nowhere. There is a California Assemblywoman. Her name is Melissa Melendez. Assemblywoman, I hope I said that right. If I didn't, please send me a note and correct me. Melissa Melendez. She is a Republican from Lake Elsinore, and she's introduced a bill in the California State Legislature, AB 757. I hope that's correct, is the number. And that bill would essentially change California to a shall issue state for concealed carry. Now, I'm going to be completely and utterly honest with you and tell you I don't think that's going anywhere, because the California legislature is run by liberal progressives and they have a supermajority. However, there's actually a California legislator who dared to submit that bill, who has stood up and said, the Second Amendment is our right, it is not a privilege, and people have the right to defend themselves. Even if the bill goes nowhere, you and I really need to express our support for Assemblywoman Melendez. And so I'm going to put her contact information in this video. I urge you, please contact her office, tell her how grateful you are for the fact that she's fighting for our Second Amendment rights, even though it may not go anywhere. We want to encourage these few legislators we have in the California legislature who are willing to stand up and fight, because there's a lot of conservative legislators up there who have completely and utterly given up because they're outnumbered and they get frustrated and they quit. And we don't want that to happen to this fine young woman. She's working very hard. And I hope and pray that we can support her and voice that support to her so she continues to fight this battle for us. Again, the bill is AB 757. Her name is Melissa Melendez, and I will put her contact information in the description for you so you can contact her office directly. Now, lastly, I want to urge you to please join the National Rifle Association. So many times we have victories like the presidential one, and people think, okay, well, I don't need to fight anymore. And that could not be further from the truth. Now is the time for us to get on the offensive. And it costs just as much money and effort to go on the offensive as it does to be on the defensive all the time. We've been on the defensive a lot. Now it's time to get these things changed. And the National Rifle Association, as well as other pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment organizations, needs your involvement, both physically and sending letters, writing, emails, and and making phone calls and showing up to rallies and that kind of thing, but also financially. So if you have not already joined the National Rifle Association, I urge you, please do so. I've gotten you a deal so you can do it and save a little money. You'll find the link in the description. There should be a little pop-up up here that will lead you to that. It'll take you to a special place on our website where you can join the NRA. Save you a little money. You can join it for less than the cost of one box of ammunition. So if you have not already joined the NRA, please, please, please do so. I urge you to do that now. Now, if you have guns for home defense, self-defense, or you carry a gun like I do every day, you're also going to need some legal backup if you're in a situation where you have to use a gun to defend yourself. And it doesn't matter what state you're in, you're still going to need legal backup. The company I use is called Second Call Defense, and that is because they front the money up front. They don't reimburse me after I've sold everything to defend myself. They actually front the money to bail me out of jail, to pay for an attorney to support me in civil or criminal matters, and no matter what happens, I don't have to pay that money back. That's a great service. They don't charge a whole heck of a lot for it. The fees are actually very small. And I urge you to check out Second Call Defense. Now, I've got a link in the description for that, plus a little thing that pops up here for you to check that out. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. As we learn more about these things, I'll let you know. I'll put it on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll also make a video periodically as things change so I can keep you up to date. Please like, subscribe. That's why we've got this thing up here for you to subscribe, and tell other people about the channel. We're trying to grow it so that we can really grow our Second Amendment support here in the state of California, but also across the country. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week, and be safe.